Thank you very much. Gosh, that was a big build-up, wasn't it? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John. I live in Bangalore, originally from England, as you can probably tell. I've made the enormous trip from Whitefield and the rural Bangalore, it's a delight to be here. It's always a pleasure, a little bit nervous, to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, because, being a GCC head, when one's in a room with more than 2 or 3 HR people, I tend to get a bit nervous. A room of 150, you can imagine I'm rather nervous. But I want to talk to you a little bit about our company, what we do with talent management, the journey I've been on, and where I think it's going to go. Novo Nordisk, if you've not heard of us, we're a medical company, we're a pharmaceutical company. We're about 100 years old, a little more, and we treat about half the world's people who take insulin injections. So we treat around about 46 million people every day with diabetes or obesity medicines. So maybe here, if you've not heard of the company name, when I say obesity, and you think about injections, maybe that's also something that we're involved in. But I want to talk a little bit about talent management for Novo Nordisk. So I think you've probably, and I was watching the previous panel online, there's a lot of discussion around AI. And for me, AI is an enabler for what we do, but I'm one of these perhaps rarer folk these days that spend a lot of time thinking about truly human leadership and authenticity and vulnerability and empathy, and all the things that really, at least today, perhaps AI can't do. And the journey for me in this started in about 5 years ago. So we all remember the COVID world, and I was the general manager of Novo Nordisk in Thailand at that time, and it suddenly hit me that this strange virus was an enormous leveler for all of us. Because no matter your rank, no matter your grade, no matter your previous experience, you had no clue how to lead through this. And my fears, my paranoias were the same as every other employee. Yet I'd got the task of leading an organization through this, and I'm sure many of you remember that scenario. And the further I got through this leadership journey, the more I realized that every individual's hopes, fears, ambitions, and in the case of Thailand, and I think India also, perhaps the hopes and ambitions of families linked to those employees were wrapped up and very much in my hands. And as I was kind of developing my leadership style a little bit into this direction, my wife found me this book. And she said, "John, you've been talking about this stuff over dinner for months, and maybe this is a little bit about the stuff that you've been talking about. And if you've not seen this, I really would endorse it to you. The book, Everybody Matters, The Extraordinary Power of Caring for People, Your People, Like Family." And then moving into this job, I was scaling up my leadership capacity by a factor of 10. In fact, now we're 4,500 people over in Whitefield. At the time, it was 2,500. And I was curious as to whether the leadership traits that took me to a successful journey in Thailand could take me to a successful journey on a 10-time scale-up. And it seems that that's true. So I landed here in India, and I was tasked with doing, as many GCC leaders are, hammering in a GBS or GCC strategy into the organization. And it didn't feel quite right initially. It felt a bit like putting a sort of square peg through a round hole. And I couldn't quite figure this out. And then I started, bizarrely, not to run surveys, but to ask my team to talk to employees, to sit in the cafes, to sit in the pantries, to sit in the lunchtime, and really bring informal groups together and say, what's bothering you? What are your concerns? And people started to open up, and they started to list some of the things that were missing in their employee experience. And it dawned on me that it felt a little bit like a Maslow hierarchy of needs, that if I didn't fix the basics, then how could I possibly hammer in a strategy from the top? And so that's the sort of introduction to the journey that I've been on over the last 3 years. So where does this take us with talent management and talent development? I mean, the key message is humanistic, human, and an individual. But I broke this sort of problem statement down that I kind of figured out as I got here. And by the way, we had an attrition. Maybe some of you would say the attrition wasn't too bad, but for me it was a shocker. It was 17.5%. And my customers, our affiliates, were saying to me, but I never speak to the same person twice in your organization. Everybody leaves. The moment we invest in developing somebody, they've gone, and then we have to start again. So attrition was, in my view, poor. Morale was poor. Engagement was poor. People were leaving because they were getting better opportunities elsewhere. The culture felt different. Novo Nordisk is a very culture-centered company, but the culture didn't feel like Novo Nordisk. And we also had some compliance issues. To be fair, we'd got some problems with some of our systems, and I needed to focus on house in order. So those were the kind of the four pillars, if you like, that we started to work on. And I became a bit obsessed with this. So our talent attraction system wasn't working. I mean, it was taking us more than 100 days to hire people. People were confusing us with another pharmaceutical company beginning with NOV, based in Hyderabad. And we couldn't get talent, and yet my customers were demanding that we were hiring talent. So we spent a ton of time looking at our TA system, optimizing it. Yes, we work with an RPO, but we also looked then for specific niche hirings. And then we, as you can see, spent a fair bit of investment in external branding, in kind of promoting the company and the values and what we do. And then what we hadn't done, and what many other companies, of course, do, is spend time with academia collaborations. And so we started to tiptoe into that, and we signed MOUs with Manipal over in Mangalore, with Triple IT here in Bangalore, with BITS Pilani, and a few others. And I remember one of the deans of the medical school saying to me, look, John, these MOUs are easy. You know, you turn up and you just sign a piece of paper and we take a few photographs. The real test of this is whether you put yourself and your leadership team into making this thing work. So that became a kind of mantra for me, that we actually need to do these collaborations properly in order to engage our employees. So big effort on academia collaborations to enable us to attract talent, but also retain talent and develop our people. Similarly, when it came to engagement and talent retention, spent a bit of time looking at our female employees. Now, one of the funny things that we encountered, and this came from one of our female employees who was coming back from maternity leave, was she said, John, go and look for the numbers of how many, if there are 10 ladies leave on maternity leave, when they come back to work, how many are still here in 6 months' time? And the answer was 1. So we had 90% attrition of the people who were returning from maternity leave. And I thought, I think we can do better than that. And with the inspiration from a group of those females, we created this thing called our Flamingo program. What this means is that it's a bespoke program that from the moment a lady says that she's pregnant, right the way through to 6 months after she returns to work, there are bespoke things that can support her. So when somebody announces they're pregnant, if they choose to, they get an amigo, they get a buddy who then can help them through the journey that they've already been on, with the family interactions, with the expectations, with the multiple expectations of work and family. We also do things like specific transportation, so they don't have to sit in the TT with another 8 people. We do a specific portal for information, so that you don't, whilst you're on your maternity, you don't have to search through the 2,500 unread emails to find that your boss has just left. And there's specific portals for that kind of information. And then when you return to work, you can demand that you have extra flexibility, extra work from home, etc., etc., etc. Result of that 10 where we were losing 9 is reversed. Now, for every 10 that go on to come back from maternity leave, we lose 1. So the investment in people, maybe it's not so much development, but it is development, because those careers can then be developed within our organization and serve us better in the future. Furthermore, when it comes to culture, we've spent a lot of time investing in not only Indian cultural events and Pride Month that there was last month, but in a GCC you're quite some distance from the patient, and in a pharmaceutical company the patient is very dear to us. So we've invested a lot of time in bringing the patient closer to our employees so that they feel a purpose about what they do. And then there are a number of other things to do with medical benefits and policies. And then when it comes to specific development opportunities, we then look across the organization, and we've segmented it for the needs of age of people, the needs of generations of people, the needs of male and female, the needs of leaders, the needs of senior leaders, and we've created bespoke activities and bespoke training courses and collaborations with people like ISB to develop our folks. And it's not easy. It's heavy lifting. It's not AI. Maybe it's not so sexy, but it works. And to give you a couple of numbers, perhaps, that would corroborate my argument, that 17% attrition, which maybe in our industry is not bad, is now 6. And it has been 6 for the last, on a rolling average, for the last 12 months. I'm sure as HR leaders you understand the Net Promoter Score. For our exit interviews done by an external company, we then look at the Net Promoter Score. And for our pharma GCC industry, the average Net Promoter Score is 40, meaning 4 out of 10 of people who go through an exit interview would recommend the company. That's seen as excellent or good. Our Net Promoter Score is 77. So even those who leave us are recommending the organization in terms of policies, in terms of culture, in terms of respect, and in terms of people development and organizational development. So I guess with that in mind, what I would put it to you is the future is for sure utilizing technology. It's for sure utilizing digitalization. You know, all our training material is now digitalized. People can access it from anywhere, any format. They can do Harvard Business School courses online through their phone while they're on vacation. Digitalization is key for sure. AI to be able to figure out where our talents are, and I think I heard on a previous panel somebody saying really interesting things around being able to identify talents that perhaps wouldn't identify themselves. I think that's a super exciting thing that we can use technology for, and that's for sure a part of the vision of the future for talent management. But maybe it's my grey hair, maybe it's my losing my hair, but I'm a bit old-fashioned. I think we should not forget that everybody matters. And as HR leaders and as leaders, if we jump on the bandwagon of technology, which we should, but we do it at the expense of the human interaction and the personal development, and really investing in human beings' careers and ambitions and worries and desires and hopes for the future, then we do that at our peril. So my view of the future is embrace technology, utilize it where appropriate, but don't give up on the skills of empathy, of consideration, of communication, of collaboration. We used to call them soft skills. I now think they're core skills, because that's what's going to develop the leaders of the future in organizations like ours and perhaps yours too. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I enjoy the rest of the meeting. Thank you.